Undiscovered Gems 22. This time we are looking at an artist, an instrumental, not a instrumental, that was bad, hip-hop producer, artist. Little Armenia has been an album I've been aware of for quite some time actually, and I feel like I say this a lot in this series, but it did also make my best albums of the 2010s list. I think it's quite a nice idea talking about those albums collectively in those lists that I did like over a year ago at this point, but then picking out the ones that aren't really talked about that much and then making, you know, a separate video to highlight them. Because it just kind of gives them a bit more of a boost, a bit more of a focus too. If you're watching a list video, sometimes you do just kind of skip over some and you forget about the ones that you might have been interested initially. But of course, doing a video like this, you ain't gonna miss it. Beirut follows the footsteps of the many instrumental hip-hop artists that have preceded him. Of course, the ones before him are way more famous and well known, as you could probably gather. You know, Jay Dilla, Madlib, Jarvis, Uwama Hiroto, who is one that doesn't get named as often as the other ones I've just said, but he is still another artist or a name that more people would recognize than Beirut. Beirut comes from a different angle though. He doesn't necessarily pull out soulful samples that, you know, are really rich and organic in the genres that they came from, but instead he goes for something a bit different and gives us more of the Middle Eastern twang that isn't often found in many hip-hop albums or hip-hop artists' albums ever, really. You occasionally see the odd Middle Eastern interpolation in a hip-hop song, but it's pretty rare, and it's usually like one track on an album. If you ever see it pop up, it usually is just one idea that maybe the producer had a kind of thought, let's try something different. But Beirut digs deep for the absolutely beautiful and lovely vocal snippets and samples that are just heavily scattered all over this album. Seriously, so many of them just hit such a beautiful spot. The beats are often upbeat and kind of also at times a bit slower, but they always match what he's attempting to go for. It is 20 tracks and nothing ever feels out of place. Just drank some tea and I burnt my tongue. The first few tracks are just glorious, man. This is surely gonna lock you in. If you've never listened to this album and you play this album, you know, from the start, this is the way to lock you in. Don't pick a random track just from like track 10 or track 11 just to get a taste of things. No, start from the beginning and just listen to track 2 and track 3. Oh, the melody on Sonia is eternal. It feels like you've just discovered such a secret to life. Like, you know, back in the days where explorers would go and find things and they didn't know anything about certain places or whatever, and they just discover something and it's like, somehow the melody on this track makes me feel that way. And I ain't an explorer, I'm not gonna lie. I probably won't live a life where by the end of it I'm gonna discover something that no one else has. I mean, the chances of anyone doing that is so slim, but this song makes you feel the fantasy. Ace Kisha, this is another album, by the way, where I'm probably gonna botch pronunciations, but anyway, this track is so playful. I love the beat on this one. It just has this speedy tempo and reminds me of something you'd find in like a crime thriller film, or even something like, you know, spaghetti western or something. I think it's a great combination of sounds that manages to go beyond just it being like a Middle Eastern sounding track. Not to say that would be a bad thing, but I like how tracks like this kind of transcend those expectations and he gives you something slightly different. Now, I think I mentioned Madlib already at the start of this, but Sev Aker, my god, I totally could see MF Doom rapping over this, obviously produced by Madlib, like circa 2004. There is just such a vision I have of like MF Doom coming through on this kind of beat. Not to say that it matters who would rap over it or anything like that, but man, it is just so fantastic. I'm kind of just showcasing the quality of how good this track sounds, if anything. You've got tracks like Gayan, where I just find everything that's going on so ear-grabbing. There is so much detail in the instrumental. There's so many things to focus on. And my God, there's not a moment where I'm not like thinking about, wow, what is going on here? It's just such a great track. Kes Hamer is a great example of how elegant and sophisticated this whole album is. This might be one of the most elegant sounding tracks on the whole thing, though. Maybe the closing track, though. These two tracks, ooh. There are lots of other tracks too that let the vocal snippets and vocal samples take charge, which were Kenovi Yerk. I've written it down because obviously, again, I'm not here for the pronunciation, so I need to write these tracks down. This track, the vocals here are absolutely stunning. Like the way the vocals just completely, again, take over everything. Some of the tracks do this too, but he's just letting the vocals breathe and let loose. And you know, sometimes it's great to just do that, especially in an instrumental hip-hop track. You don't always have to focus on the beat. Focus on the vocals, turn it into its own little thing. Musala music is not as chirpy and peppy as many of the other tracks here, though. This one's way more stone-faced. It feels very serious and brooding, and regardless of how it may sound juxtaposed with many of the other tracks, it still works really well. And I couldn't not talk about Uraz coming right at the end of the album, well, towards the end. This is beautiful, absolutely exquisite. The production here is immaculate. There is just such a professionalism to this. You wouldn't think that this is an album that is getting mentioned in an Undiscovered Gems series. You know, when you look at how beautifully put together this is. I can say that about so many though in this series, but you know, considering how big hip hop is at the moment and how much of a huge following and, you know, adoration and love hip-hop fans have for production and producers, it's crazy to think that this guy is, again, undiscovered and barely known. The smoothness to this is absolutely to die for, and I could totally imagine Mos Def rapping over this, a rapper like Mos Def anyway. This could easily slot into the Ecstatic, without a doubt. And even other rappers out there too that have a smoothness to their voice and rap over that kind of production. It's crazy. Why is this guy not a huge name, and why is he not someone that's been producing for so many famous rappers for the past 10 years? I don't get it. Deserves way more respect and adoration and love than he has gotten. This guy should not be a name that you've never heard of. This guy should be up there with all of the producers in hip-hop that get talked about the most. Honestly, that is high praise, but I stand by it. I think he is fantastic. So yeah, that's pretty much everything to say there, really. Hopefully you listen to this based on this video, and let me know if you have heard this in the comments. That would be great too. Thank you for watching. Do hope you have a good day. Please listen to this album. Let me know your thoughts. If you have already heard it though, you could also let me know your thoughts in the comments. That would be great. Thank you for watching. Do have a good day. Undiscovered Gems. Yes. 22. Yes. Goodbye. Subscribe. Goodbye.